All right, Tim, I don't know if you wanted to start this off. It didn't seem like you did, but I just want to introduce myself as long as I am. My name is Justin Miller. I am the webinar and video producer here at Wowza. And we are going to be talking about moving to virtual, taking your events online during a worldwide crisis. And Tim is going to be the VJ for this. Tim, how's it going?
I've always wanted to be a VJ, Justin. Thanks for the handoff there. Or just giving several of you a chance to join. I see that number increasing, which is really fun. I think we're going to have some productive discussion today with an intent to help many of you who are making the transition to remote workflows, dealing with messaging, talking to employees, to constituents. One thing we're experiencing here at Wowza is a very unique volume of people asking for help. How do I speak to my employees? How do I speak to my church congregation? We can do nothing but respond honestly and hopefully competently. So we have a group of I think all-stars today to cover some topics, deal with what we really all would agree is a worldwide crisis with the COVID-19 issue. And our intent really is to expose tools, expose simplicity and opportunity, appropriate opportunity during this difficult time. So this morning we do have an agenda to cover. And as we get into that, we're certainly going to introduce the panel that we have today. But we're gonna take about 45 minutes and cover some topics in a roundtable capacity. You know, fortunately, people are willing to reach out and say, "Hey, Wowza, how do I do this?" And so, in having had many conversations over the last week or two, we've brought some issues to the top that we think will be useful and informative. So we'll cover those in roundtable, and then we'll get into some opportunities for live virtual events. Some of the challenges and some of the ways that these workflows are configured, and hopefully it sparks some ideas and some questions. And by the way, we do have some experts on the line, so if you do want to type in some questions into the client, you're welcome to ask us anything. We want to make sure you leave this webinar with a sense of having learned something, felt more informed. And if we can offer resources to do that, I assure you we will do so. And then the other item, of course, we're going to get into some real world streaming examples, where the rubber meets the road. We understand the difficulty when in an organization, someone in leadership, they understand and they feel this tremendous gravity, this need to talk to people through their organization, particularly large companies talking to employees, particularly houses of worship wanting to make sure that they can continue their services. And of course, education. I myself, I'm a dad of 2 college students, and it's amazing to see what both the universities where my daughters attend, how quickly, and I think in a real quality way, they're moving over into a virtual classroom environment. So before I go too far, let me introduce our panelists. First off, I'm pleased to introduce Dave Stuvenval. He's our Wowza CEO. Barry Owen, our Vice President of Solution Engineering. Anthony Lazaro, he's our Senior Director of Product. And the guy I go to when I get stumped, which means it's just about every day, Mr. Andrew Kennedy, our Principal Solution Architect. So everybody on the panel, say hi real quick. Just say hi all together at the same time.
Hey, everybody.
Hey. All right, cool. So let's dive into our first question, if that's okay with everybody. And the question is, how do I manage my live events during the coming weeks and months? I'm going to just throw that out there to the panel, and I think we should just dive into the discussion. How do we manage all this stuff, you guys?
Don't everyone speak at once, right?
Well, I was going to pick on you, Barry, so go first.
You know, a lot of people who don't necessarily have the infrastructure in place already, you need to rely on a SaaS platform and a service. So, you know, choose a service, be it Wowza or another one that is reliable, that can scale, and you can get up and running quickly. And, you know, there's various aspects to that, and we can certainly help with many of them, and we'll get into some more of those details. But, you know, scalability is important right now, and the ability to adapt to changing conditions as people's bandwidth is throttled in different countries and things like that, and being able to give people the best quality you can under the circumstances. The ability to do many events and maybe smaller, more targeted events and things like that. Certainly something to consider.
So
yeah, I'd add in, I'd probably start with just really looking at what your current capabilities are and trying to understand in a gap analysis type way, how does your workflow change with the impact of your audience moving to a different location. So I think a lot of people today might already be streaming in a limited capacity or for specific purposes. You could think of a K through 12 school system that is doing morning meetings where they're streaming to the classrooms and a few people off, offline or on the public internet. And now all of a sudden that is completely flipped. You can think of enterprise use cases where you built out some sort of internal CDN multicast type workflow where now no one's in the office to leverage the corporate network, or even in other situations where you might be going to typically one Facebook page and now you're trying to go to a lot of different destinations. So think through and identify how your workflows changed and is now impacted by your audience being in a different location. What does this mean for your scaling capabilities, the amount of streams that you're doing, and start there, because that's where you're really going to need to change your workflow to adapt in the coming weeks and months.
great comments. I'm thinking about two things. One is, Barry, you had mentioned SAS or SaaS essentially, and that means software as a service. And typically that's something like Wowza Streaming Cloud where you can subscribe, send a stream, and get up and running. I'm mindful of just kind of anybody's going to think of this. How do I know the SaaS is going to be there? How do I know that the capacity there? Because I have the impression that so many people are on my Wi-Fi, or excuse me, on my local internet, my neighborhood internet. How do I know I can rely on these services?
Well, you look at standing on the shoulders of giants for starters, right? I mean, we're able to leverage all three major clouds. We can run on Azure, we can run on AWS, we can run on Google. So it really is taking advantage of these massive infrastructures and highly available platforms, and being able to adapt if something does happen to one of them, where we can maintain that reliability by switching over.
That actually is a word of comfort when you said riding on the backs of giants. And it is important to remember that these content delivery networks are built for extreme demand. And to my knowledge, I don't think there have been significant or noteworthy failures. And we're definitely seeing an increase in usage on our CDN networks. Anthony, you'd mentioned sustainable scalability. I've been having conversations, and when you said something along the lines of taking into consideration what you're doing now and then expanding upon that, I know people are doing that. People that have a small scale K through 12 daily announcements, great example, but now they need to get it out to their entire population. So one thing I think about is how you can, in many cases, extend what you are using now and get that out to a CDN. For example, if you're using Wowza Streaming Engine on a school campus, you can use what's called stream targets and push an RTMP stream or even an SRT stream, which are two very common streaming protocols, up to a CDN. And then all of a sudden you have what Barry was mentioning earlier, you're riding on the back of giants. And so you're not having to invest in hardware. You're just simply being smarter with where you're sending your stream. Another thing that is interesting, and we're definitely seeing this, a shift to smaller, more consolidated events. There are a lot of people out there that are using Zoom and using even Skype probably for some of these smaller events. But the other side of it is we're talking about events more so than meetings. We're talking about, smaller, more consolidated events. What's a good way that we can follow that or offer advice on someone who maybe needs to get a yoga studio virtualized, or, we've covered classroom, but there are a lot of these smaller businesses that are scrambling right now because their customers can't come to their studio or to their store or to their, to wherever work and commerce takes place. So what are some practical steps to shifting to a smaller, more consolidated event?
I think the Zoom example is an interesting one that you're bringing up. I've certainly seen it with local businesses in my area, and it's a good way to stay in touch. I would call out that you need to be mindful of some potential drawbacks with as it relates to I know we're going to talk about privacy a little bit, but Zoom. There's been these horror stories of people taking over the Zoom video because you don't have the right paid account level with it. In which case, when you're broadcasting, you do have more full control over that via a streaming service, so you're able to control the source. I would certainly be mindful of your source control. I would be mindful of your load as you think about cadence of streaming, especially if you're using streaming engine today. How much load can you do in terms of number of events at a single time? One nice thing about something like streaming cloud, which Wowza can offer, is the ability to do that concurrency without having to change your plan. So you can do multiple events at the same time and piecemeal it out that way in a clean way to handle that kind of like multi-event scale capacity issue that you might have using other technologies.
Yeah, I want to amplify that a little bit. Oh, go ahead, Barry, please.
I would add some of the tools we have, right? So the ability to be able to broadcast from your laptop, from your iPad, from your phone, instead of having to have a studio set up like you may have had back at the office, right? So, you can use a mobile broadcasting app like GoCoder. You can use Zoom and send Zoom to cloud to get the scale. And, or you could use WebRTC from your browser on any device to get stuff in. So you don't necessarily have to rely on maybe the production setup you did have in your previous workflows. You can leverage things that allow you to get up and running much more easily and bring that into the platform, and then send that off, whether it be to as you mentioned, the CDN, whether it mentioned the social media, being able to broadcast to places like that. So it just eliminates one more barrier that you may have had to leave your production studio behind for now.
Yeah, and one thing you just mentioned, Barry, to add on, I think there's a question here on remote many to remote many. There's a few ways to skin this cat between either building something with WebRTC and Wowza directly versus maybe a different path because of the technical capabilities you have. Maybe you do use something like Zoom, something that we're on today, but instead of having people sign into the Zoom, you broadcast that out to Wowza Streaming Cloud, and this way you're able to hit many viewers, and you also maintain that control over the sensitivity to what's going on in the Zoom itself. So I think that was a question in the chat right now, how to think through that remote many to many viewers.
Couple things I'm hearing here, both from Anthony and Barry. First of all, Anthony, I think you made a good point earlier about how you can have multiple concurrent events. So if you are a subscriber to Wowza Streaming Cloud, you're not limited to one event at a time. So you can quickly and easily stack on the number of events you're doing at the same time. And Barry, what I'm hearing from you is use the tools that are available. We're not trying to measure which tool is better than the other right now. We're trying to get information out and provide continuity. So if it is WebRTC, if it is OBS, if it is something that you just downloaded, as long as it works, get it working and get it up and running. I think those are two real simple but very good points of advice you offered. I heard someone was about to say something. I may have interrupted. Did someone have a comment?
I was going to make a quick comment about some of the scalability that customers are seeing. And obviously they're moving now to as much virtual as they can, but they're getting a lot of users. So I know one particular case where customers gone from 500 weekly viewers to nearer 15,000. And of course, that impacts on costs that they weren't expecting. This impacts on a whole bunch of things that really they're struggling with. So one of the issues there, or one of the avenues they've gone down, is instead of keeping it video, they've moved to video only till they can work out the infrastructure, they work out the costs. And so that may be something also for people to understand, is that there are things they can do to help scale up quickly and then work out how to move back to a video scenario as well. So Again, from the scalability point of view.
Yeah, the number you mentioned, did you say 500 to some thousand viewers?
Yes.
Virtually overnight?
Yeah.
That is an overwhelming scenario. I'm glad that we have resources like Barry mentioned, software as a service, to handle that sort of thing. Andrew, I'm glad you spoke up because I want to highlight you for a moment here. We see in the talking point here, privacy concerns and added security measures. I know that you have a great deal of experience dealing with some of the complexities that we try to make simple, dealing with things like secure token and encryption. Would you have any thoughts to offer about a very appropriate concern? Is someone unauthorized going to be getting a hold of this stream? That's a very common question. Just curious if you have anything to offer on that.
So from a Wowza Cloud and Wowza Streaming Engine point of view, we can offer DRM. So very relatively simple to implement. Most players now support DRM very easily. It comes down to, if you've got a good website, you kind of portal that you can log into. Most people have got something where they can put the links behind. If it's delivered over SSL, which most things are now, HTTPS, then again, delivery across the internet is not going to be easy to kind of sneak and look at. But you do need something like a token control. So one, you can prevent people connecting at any time, but also just to make sure you've got an assigned audience. You know what the audience size is going to be, so you can pre-assign a whole load of tokens. And again, it gives people a control over, I'm not going to get 50,000 people connecting because I've got that kind of understanding of where I'm giving out tokens. And we can do that on Engine and within cloud.
We also have the ability to add on to that just a tiny bit is, we have the ability to only allow streams to be played in certain areas, and whether that be country or even state level or even more precise. So we have an array of things we can add from honestly fairly simple to honestly quite complex, depending on what you're looking for. But as far as mitigating those concerns about the stream, a sensitive stream, maybe a corporate event, internal corporate event leaking out or things like that, we can cover you there.
Well, let's bring up another point here about the inadequacy of the internet. Almost all of what we do, particularly with the CDN, happens via the cloud or via the internet. What are some first of all, what is an inadequate infrastructure? What is a bandwidth issue? Does anyone want to talk a little bit about that? What we're dealing with and how we're working to solve that problem?
So one quick note there, we're seeing Disney Plus and Netflix, they're being throttled in Europe. And that's, we are straining this infrastructure with this massive remote workforce move. And we can be mindful of how to provide a quality experience. Does not necessarily mean 4K video for talking heads, right? It's just not necessary, right? You think about what you're trying to accomplish. For medical, for first responders, video quality really matters much more. But for talking head, if you've got a business application, you want to be able to see the whiteboard, you want to be able to see the content, but you don't need that super high density video that's taking up a lot of bandwidth. So and as with everything, always be mindful of your objective. Think of what you need to achieve that, and everything can work out much better that way.
Adding on to what Dave said, so if you're shooting this in terms of production, what frame rate do you need to use? Do you need to use high motion frame rates, 50, 60 frames per second video, or you're doing talking heads, definitely choose the lower frame rate video. It's going to save you a bunch on bandwidth in terms of the out. And then as you think about your bandwidth issues, is this coming from your broadcast, publisher side of the house, so you're limited on that end, or is this really about your viewers and the potential bandwidth there? So if you have issues on the publisher side, think about shooting instead of in 1080, shooting in 720. If you're having issues on the viewer side of the house, are you able to do adaptive bitrate streaming, which will certainly alleviate your viewers of bandwidth needs because they could choose lower bit rates if they have bandwidth issues. If you're not, then let's choose a better bit rate that's going to hit a broader spread of your audience. So again, thinking through what you want to shoot in so that you could pass along a good bit rate down to your end viewers.
Yeah, I think that the message here is, it's effectiveness over quality in some capacities, but in every sense of the term, don't let someone convince you that you have to do Ultra HD or even 1080p for talking heads. This is about continuity and messaging. And I think it's important for us to remember what works versus, what we perceive as the quality standard.
You mentioned this too, Tim, earlier, the a lot of people that might be using Wowza streaming engine today just deliver straight off engine because it's an easy workflow and it works, and set up that way. As they have viewers that now are in different spots, or they have more viewers on that same server, looking at a CDN might be a really good option to help alleviate some potential bandwidth issues that you're going to have. So you could, Wowza has a Wowza CDN, which is contract free, so you could use it temporarily. But I think that is one really important thing for you to think about in terms of your streaming requirements and how much bandwidth you're going to be needing.
Yeah, and real simply, if you have let's say a broadcast that you want to stay on your own network behind your firewall, Wowza streaming engine can scale quite effectively so that you can have total control over that network activity. I want to just speak to monetization. This is something I've encountered in dealing with and speaking with customers this past week is, I'm converting a yoga class to virtual. And it almost feels wrong as a business person to ask them to continue paying for something that they formerly received in person, and of course a rich in-person experience. But I'm finding this, just based on testimony from several customers I've spoken to, that people are eager and excited to continue to support their beloved yoga teacher or their piano teacher, and they're willing to continue to pay for these events. And I'm finding that kind of encouraging as we go through this difficult time. Someone have a comment?
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of wanting to help the small businesses, if you will, right? I want to go get takeout from my local restaurants. I want to work with my yoga instructor. So, we can definitely help with that. Some of the things Andrew already mentioned about how to protect the streams directly apply. If you have a site where you can set up a simple paywall, then you can also protect the streams underneath that and have this pay-per-view experience if you choose to do so. So definitely all things we can help.
Definitely.
In those kind of situations, sorry, Tim.
No, go ahead, Andrew, please.
So one of those situations, so the gym one and the yoga class is quite an interesting one because I've been working with a gym to kind of set up something like that. It's also about where we talked about talking heads and so on. In those situations, it's a lot more about the audio. So also going back to what's been mentioned before is understanding the audio, understand the audience. So if they can't hear the instructions, it's not clear enough on what's going on, it makes it much more difficult to participate. So again, that audience understanding what you're trying to achieve is very crucial to making it a good experience as people move to a virtual space.
Yeah, the takeaway on that is don't forget about the microphone too. They have to be able to hear, and that is often a gotcha when setting up a video streaming workflow. So make sure you're thinking about the audio level, that it's not overdriving. You're listening to it in headphones in the other room. Do everything you can to make sure that audio is good. I'm really glad you brought that up, Andrew. I'm going to push us on a little bit here into the next topic, which is how do I bring my audience together with real-time live streaming engagement? Now, we're, of course, focusing on the technology. It's the entrepreneur, it's the leader, it's the person running an organization who sets the tone and the direction and how that content is produced. But let's continue to talk about how we can bring people together. And the first one is adaptive bitrate streaming. We may have touched on that a little bit, but someone on the panel, just grab that first bullet point and tell us what adaptive bitrate streaming is.
Go.
Barry, I'm picking on you.
I do think, as you can probably tell, we all love to talk about this stuff. So I think we have actually hit a lot of this slide already. But at its simplest form, adaptive bitrate streaming is really just producing an alternate rendition of each video. You have your video stream coming in, you have various renditions of it. They could be smaller frame sizes, they can be slower bit rates, they could be audio only. And then having a player on the other side that can intelligently pick which one is going to give the person the best experience by looking at the available bandwidth, by looking at the buffering state and seeing if it's falling behind or having to buffer. And this is the kind of foundation of high capacity streaming and streaming at scale is adaptive bitrate scenarios. Wowza has been doing this for years. We know how to do it very well. It's integrated into all our products. It flows through to the CDNs. It works with pretty much every video player out there that you could wrap around it. And it really does help if I'm streaming to a wide variety of people, I may have some people that can see my stream at 1080p. I may have some people that can only see it at 360p. I may have other people who can only see it at audio only, but at least they're all able to see and hear something, right? So I can still get my message out. Think of a large house of worship where maybe I have people in the city and the infrastructure, but I also have people way out in the country, and maybe they're on a satellite internet link or something like that, right? So we can adapt and service all these people and still get our message across very efficiently and at pretty much any scale.
Yes, that adaptive bitrate streaming is, I concur, something that is fortunately very, very native to the media players that we use, including mobile devices. And I often explain it, if you have someone watching your stream and they're still in their car out in the parking lot, they're not going to have very good Wi-Fi. So their phone will probably switch down to the least possible bitrate. Let's talk about support. When you purchase a service like Wowza, Wowza Cloud, whether you're using your own infrastructure with Wowza Engine, you need someone to turn to when there's a problem. And one thing that I was fortunate to learn early on when I started working in the video streaming business is this is hard. I mean, we make it easy, but it's also a very difficult thing, pushing all of these bits of data all over these networks and hoping, and in many cases experiencing a good outcome. But let's talk about support for a minute here. What should we be looking for? What can we speak to as far as there being an assurance that we can help or support some of these workflows that we're talking about? Andrew, I want to pick on you.
I'm going to let Andrew take that one too.
We're on the same page, Barry. Mr. Kennedy, you're up.
That's very unfair. Support-wise, obviously, we provide and have provided for years good support to all our customers based on what they're trying to do. We have good knowledge across our products, and we can understand their workflow. And should there any issues arise, we have very reactive teams to be able to kind of troubleshoot that in real time. From our products, CDN, our Wowza CDN, from my knowledge, and of course people are going to correct me now, I don't think we've had any significant downtime while it's been running. So obviously from that perspective, it provides a solid base for our customers delivering. And obviously from an engine perspective, once we've got a good configuration in there for a customer's use case, touch wood, there shouldn't be any issues except for obviously bandwidth or hardware that may crop up that's obviously outside our bounds. So again, from our support teams, we can provide you of customers with support for any of our deployments that they need.
And also people should take advantage of our community support as well. I mean, Wowza, we're actually, Andrew used to run support at one point, as well as being an engineer before moving on to ProServe. And but the community support is there as well. There's a lot of activity going on right now. We are prioritizing first responders and people on the COVID crisis more than anything else, and we think that's the right thing to do. There's a worldwide community of Wowza experts out there, and we can lean on our community, and we're active in the community as well. And that's another great way to get some quick answers, find out what's going on, and move ahead. We're very happy to help, as always, on the Wowza support side, but let's utilize both to get answers the quickest.
One thing I will say is, and if nobody's aware of it that's listening, we do also have the live streaming Slack channels. And of course, people can look those up afterwards, where there is an open community for discussion on a variety of topics broken down, and lots of support goes on in there. Just, people asking questions how to do technology, what they're trying to achieve. And of course, where we can answer, we do. And that's a great place to look up articles as well.
One thing I like to say when it comes to support, and I hope everyone on this call, on this webinar hears this, there's no such thing as a dumb question. Please don't feel like we're going to skip over your question because it's too entry level. That is 100% not the case. Please ask us anything. How do I stream? If that's your question, ask it. We'll get you started. Folks, I'm going to move us forward a little bit because I really want to get us to the Q&A session, and we promised to only take 45 minutes this morning. So I'm going to walk through just a couple typical workflows that I think anyone can understand just visually, and just to give you an idea of how some of this works from a just a pure workflow perspective. So what you see on this slide right here is a very straightforward event using a product like Wowza Streaming Cloud. This is a software as a service. You can go to our website, speak to our sales team. You can purchase a subscription to Wowza Streaming Cloud. That means if you're a live event, we've got, it looks like several different options. Or a band, or even a live podcast. It can be any number of things. You get a camera, which you can see on the top left. You get a hold of an encoder, and an encoder can be something as simple as a capture card going into your computer using open broadcast software, using Wirecast. You can broadcast to Wowza Streaming Cloud that way. It's a very inexpensive, simple way to get in. Or you can purchase something that's pro grade, like the Wowza Clearcaster, which is a incredible appliance that provides adaptability, resiliency, and control. And we have a great wealth of information about the Clearcaster on our website. And then there's some in between. There's products like Epiphan and Teradek and Matrox, and it goes on. And just get a hold of an encoder and push that video into Wowza Streaming Cloud. And we put that out there as kind of this do-all icon. It takes in the video, it transcodes it, which means it's adaptive bitrate. We've been talking about that in the previous part of this discussion, meaning you send in the best stream that your network can support. You send in a 720p stream or a 1080p stream. We take care of turning that into real-time 720p, 360p, 160p. We break down into what a lot of people call the ABR ladder. And that gives you the ability on the other side, the TVs, the games, the computers, the tablets, the things that we have illustrated there, to choose the most optimal bitrate. You'll see sometimes you'll go on Netflix, especially now since Netflix is under the gun to conserve bandwidth, and it'll start out really fuzzy. And that's adaptive bitrate. You're kind of like, oh man, is it going to be like this the whole time? And then all of a sudden you'll see it kick into a higher resolution. We provide that as part of our service. And fortunately, I think we've made it pretty easy to use. So another aspect of this that I'd like to move on, in fact, I'm going to jump to the next slide, is this concept of simulcasting. Now, when I was a kid, simulcasting was like listening to AM radio while you watched the game with your favorite announcer, and then you had ABC Sports on TV. I pardon the anecdote there, or that metaphor, but simulcasting is a really powerful tool to get your stream out to multiple locations at the same time. You see that cloud in the upper right part of the screen. You can send one stream into Wowza Streaming Cloud. Again, best stream you can produce. And at the same time, simultaneously, that's what we call it, simulcasting, you're on Facebook Live, you're on Twitter, you're on Periscope, you're on YouTube, even Twitch, and of course, Wowza Streaming Cloud to your own website at the same time. So you're not having to have this incredibly powerful network between you and the cloud. You just send what you can, and then you configure inside Wowza Cloud, based on the information that each network provides you, the ability to get multiple streams pushed out into multiple networks. Very powerful, widely used, especially right now. If you have a message, if you're an organization, and I could see public safety, I could see government. We see it all the time with news. You could see the same stream on YouTube as you see on Facebook for several broadcasters. But that is Wowza Streaming Cloud is one of the tools that very powerfully enables this workflow. And then the other one, this can't be overstated. At Wowza, we have a very powerful piece of software called Wowza Streaming Engine. It runs on a server. It could run on your laptop. It can run on a Raspberry Pi if you want it to. But when you work with a software component, it works really well when you're on your own network. For example, a company can take Wowza Streaming Engine and put one or many in each one of their corporate facilities. They can stream to everybody inside their firewall. They're building their own CDN effectively using our software. And we're really good at that. We can help people figure out how many servers they need based on their network. That's a big part of what we do for the enterprise community. But this is amazing if you think about it. There are these infrastructures that we call a CDN, a content delivery network. And as you can see, you see the globe there. You see the entire world in the right side of that slide. And it automatically sizes to any audience anywhere. So it's something that I actually have a difficult time describing because I can't even visualize it. But there are thousands of servers available and ready all over the world to take that one stream that came from whatever encoder you can get your hands on. And if people start watching it in India, they start provisioning resources in India. Same place with Europe, same place with even parts of Africa, and certainly the Western world, the United States, Western Europe, parts of Southeastern Asia. It's incredible that you have at your fingertips right now the ability to subscribe to Wowza Streaming Cloud, send a stream, and have it globally propagate all over the world. I know I got kind of excited there, guys, but it is an amazing concept. And, you know, Barry mentioned it, and Anthony's mentioned it. We're all talking about it. You subscribe to Wowza Cloud and you have this service available. So we would love to explain this in detail, but just know that the resources are there to get your stream, to get your message out, whether it's to one person or to tens of thousands.
Tim, I have to chuckle, but we do support Australia. It's missing from the map.
I know. I just noticed that myself, Anthony. That was funny. It's like,
we're in trouble. If anyone's on this, go ahead.
And New Zealand.
Yeah,
we're in big trouble.
A few places.
On simulcast, someone was asking about LinkedIn Live as well, which is supported.
LinkedIn Live is still fully supported by Wowza Cloud Wowza Streaming, and you do have to have your account whitelisted with LinkedIn personally to stream to it, but it is fully supported.
Thank you, guys. I'm glad you grounded me a little bit there.
I
didn't notice that
Australia watching. We have someone from Australia watching, apparently.
We need to do something nice for our viewers in Australia here. Let me just hit this really quick. Barry talked about it, adaptive bitrate streaming. You know, I'll just say this really briefly because I think we've given you a really good image of what ABR is. You send in the best stream you can. We provide the transcoding. We can move it into different codecs if necessary. And the illustration, the animation that you see in the slide is actually pretty good. You can see that there are different types of codecs there, but see VP9, different bit rates. And then that one right there where it goes pretty fast, but you can see it's a large 4K screen, and then you can see a breakdown of 1080 and then 720. Just know that when you use a Wowza transcoder, whether that's standalone or whether that's in our SaaS managed cloud service, you're getting multiple streams out to your end users. And again, if you have questions on these, please saturate the people on the line right now asking questions. You're also welcome to reach out to sales@wowza.com, support@wowza.com. We're eager to talk to you about everything and more that we have mentioned in this webinar. And now I'm very excited. And Justin, I'm sure you're ready to fire off some of the top questions that have come in. We'd like to field some real-time questions that have come in from the viewing community. So Justin, what do you got for us?
Tim, I am going to hold you on that because I would like us to put up the poll questions that we were going to add earlier. Is that okay?
Of course, please.
Okay. So we have a few polling questions here we wanted to ask people. One of them was, what is your biggest challenge in virtualizing your events? Just wanted to get some information, some input now that we have you guys here before we start going into the Q&A. If you could take some time to do this, I definitely appreciate it. I'll leave this one up for maybe a minute, and then I'll put the second question on, and then we'll go into the Q&A. Sounds good, Tim?
That's great. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I actually forgot that we're doing a poll. So we have a little more depth of feedback, and I see that we're really well attended today. There's a lot of you out there. So we're really looking forward to feedback on these items.
What do you think is the most right now that people are going to have?
I think scaling. I think scaling is a big issue when the realization that so many people are going virtual started to hit. And I really feel like this has been happening in the United States within the last couple of weeks. The question is this service going to be able to handle X number of people? And fortunately, with confidence, I've been able to answer if they're using a CDN, absolutely, we're ready, bring it. The other side of it is there are large corporations that use our product, and maybe they're used to streaming to 10,000 people, and they say, I need to talk to 70,000 people today. And the answer is, well, we need to talk. We need to do some scaling. We need to do some expanding of your system, because
Well, I'll tell you what.
it's an issue.
I'm going
Yes.
to end the poll right here, and the answer, just so you can, I can share the result with you, is reducing workflow complexity. So a lot of people
and
are
honestly, and that's where a SaaS platform can really help, right? So Wowza Cloud is optimized to make you easy for you to get up and running. You don't have to configure servers. You don't have to configure infrastructure. You don't have to manage any hardware. You send a stream up, you get a playback URL back. It works, it scales, it's clean, it's not complex. You have options to add security, add other things, but at its core, I could pull up my phone right now and send a GoCoder stream up to cloud and have an HLS URL in 3 minutes and be ready to go. Or I can choose the cloud option to have that embedded on a web page for me and just give a website URL out to my friends, out to whoever, and they can see it and it's there. And that does include any scale. We had an event on cloud last week that was a town hall event for the country of Finland. It had hundreds of thousands of viewers. We didn't break a sweat. We didn't really even notice, other than we got an alert that said, hey, there's a lot of people watching this stream. Cool, and it works.
definitely great to hear.
Awesome.
The other question that's up right now, and I'm just going to leave it on for a few more seconds, and this time I've allowed all of you guys to be able to vote as well, is what's the most compelling reason to consider professional services? And I've noticed as questions are coming in, there's a lot of people there who have, big questions about how to go about implementing our live streaming options. Some with chat, some with other functionality. They basically want to do webinars just like we're doing right now, want to know how they can implement it. And I've mentioned multiple times, we have professional services. So I'll be curious in the responses here, what people say. I'm just going to hold off taking this down until we reach 100. But any thoughts there?
I need the write-in vote. My answer is not on there.
Now I'm eager to hear Barry's answer.
Yeah.
My answer is to get up and running quickly. We can get you from 0 to 1 very quickly. That's what we're good at. I have a team of folks like Andrew and a bunch of other smart people who want to work with you. We can do very, very complex things. We can just help you get from 0 to 1 right away, whether that be with Engine or cloud or even a combination of the two. That's one of the things we're very, very good at.
That's definitely a good point. Next time I'll put none of the above in here. So we have an alternate. But now that we've reached 100, I will end that poll. And just so people can see, the highest choice there was architecture solutions to scale.
I feel validated. I actually thought there was some wisdom in saying mastering encoder settings. If you're not using the Clearcaster, that's a big enchilada. And enchilada is a technical term, by the way. So you're welcome to write that down for future reference. What's the next question? Do we have another one, Justin?
Yep, let's jump into the questions. And just so everyone knows, I want to thank Mac and Abby. They're the ones helping to answer questions right now, guys. I know you have a lot coming in here. And unfortunately, we can't answer every single one as a panel, but we will try to answer as many as we can before the end of the hour.
Let's give preference to anyone from Australia first.
I'm not going to do a search for Australia at the moment, but I'll start at the top here. Daniel was asking, across Europe, we provide streaming of council meetings with an integrated remote assistance app for remote assistance in council meetings. We need multiple audio with one video stream. Can you help?
Yes, is the answer to that one. So we do support multiple audios within delivery over Apple HLS. So you can have multiple audio streams if you wanted to, and this would be slightly more work depending on how you wanted to implement it. Potentially we could take 2 audio streams and mix them into one. so then you could overlay them that way. That would be more work. The basic way would be send us the audio stream, send us the video stream, and we can provide it to the client, and the client can then choose which audio stream to listen to.
All right.
Excellent.
And I have to say, many questions are like this, which honestly, at the end of the day, I want to tell people they need to have a 30-minute consultation with our professional services. You know, they need to talk about, explain their use case, and let us help you out. Like the next one here, I'm asked how to integrate chat, QA, and polling during a Wowza stream of events.
So
Well,
there's
there's a
some
little
good,
bit of work there. Go ahead, Anthony.
yeah, I would try to use like a third-party service that just has widgets out of the box. PubNub would be a pretty easy one where you could just embed a chat widget. I mean, you could probably do this, you know, in a single sitting in terms of just using it stock out of their examples. But I would rely on a third-party service like that to embed it within your application.
And PubNub does work very well. I mean, we've had
Absolutely.
good luck with it. We've had a lot of customers that have had good luck with it. I mean, start there, and it probably will meet your needs.
Awesome. Jonathan's asking, how do you recommend reliable load testing and simultaneously, I'm not sure if it's, and simulating those bursts up to 10,000 per second?
Complicated. So that would be complicated. You obviously a lot of load. You want to set up. You're going to have to set up a lot of load testing. We do have tools that we can provide that do some load testing. There are external companies that will do load testing for you. There are different scenarios in order to be able to say, you know, do you just want clients to connect and stay connected? So you're testing bandwidth, or are you testing lots of reconnections to see how your systems and networks and everything else works with together? We do have some simple tools. We can provide them. Please come and contact us and we can figure out how that works. And obviously we can point you to other people as well.
And again, that's a place where potentially, if you're concerned about load and bursty load in particular, really consider using a CDN. That's what they're built for. It's a really hands-off way to get highly reliable video at scale, particularly when the scale is unknown. And yeah, I realize there's a cost to it. So if you do have the ability with your own infrastructure and you're managing costs that way, you know, as Andrew said, there's various things we can do to help you test that load and even estimate what the load might be and the amount of servers and coverage you may need.
Yeah, but there's also don't overlook the significant cost to doing that load testing and maintaining a system that can handle a load. You know, Wowza Streaming Cloud does a couple of 100,000 live events per month. When we had someone unexpectedly, you know, have an event with a couple 100,000 users, we weren't prepared for it. We didn't notice it. Right? That's the advantage of using a managed service that is built for scale.
All right. Another question coming in is, how do you see 5G affecting the quality of streaming?
I think it'll affect it for the better, right? I mean, there's already a ton of mobile streaming, particularly on the consumption side, but more and more so on the broadcast side. People broadcasting from mobile, whether it be because we're now distributed, or whether it just be things like drones or cameras that are, you know, traffic cameras, whatever. You'll get a lot more reliability and a lot more bandwidth than you do currently. And it's going to be an enabling technology to really make video even more and more pervasive. And I can see the number of, you know, remote wireless cameras in the world just continuing to proliferate.
All right. I got a roadmap question. I know you guys love those. What's on the roadmap for WebRTC within Wowza Streaming Engine to facilitate real-time interactive services? That's the first part. And the second is, what hurdles do you see that need solutions before they could replace Zoom for a seminar meeting like this?
Right, so for the first part, for WebRTC roadmap, we're coming out with a bunch of enhancements in the coming weeks for WebRTC, and through the rest of the quarter, you'll really see it. On one point, you know, with browsers changing and evolving, we're going to be posting up a lot of our examples to help you on GitHub, so you can kind of easily stay up to date and always make sure you're hitting all browsers appropriately. we are having some enhancements to the core code to also help with session handling and multiple use cases. A big thing and a big theme for us is really publisher reliability. We see this a ton. Everyone's trying to use WebRTC for source acquisition of video, browsers from phones to desktops, etc. And how can you enhance your publisher reliability? A big thing is doing adaptive encoding within the browser. So we're going to be coming out with a feature to help enable adaptive encoding very cleanly, which should immensely help your workflows. You never really know what bandwidth issues are going to come up until they come up, and so this will help you be able to navigate through those surprises and make sure that you have good experiences for the rest of your viewers further down. We're also going to be doing a few things as it relates to, I would say, non-traditional WebRTC use cases. So a lot of times you might need to have WebRTC in to other protocols out, or you might be going, an IP camera in to WebRTC out, different use cases like that. So expanding our use case workflows to allow you to be able to use us in that kind of Swiss Army knife fashion to support the real-time streaming you're trying to do with WebRTC. So those are a few of the features. I would definitely sign up for the beta lists that Wowza Streaming Engine has, because that's going to be the fastest way for you to get access to some of these capabilities and stay up to date. In terms of the second part of the question, how do I replicate a webinar type experience for my providers? I think WebRTC is a really good option for you as it relates to that, creating a broadcast friendly experience for your end users. So it sounds like this is a service provider that's trying to enable, a lot of third parties to broadcast on their platform in a very easy and accessible way. And that is really what WebRTC is built for. Years ago, Flash was the best way to do this. And that's where, most people were going in order to do this easy publishing into a service to then broadcast out to many people. Now WebRTC is the right method to go. So certainly going there in terms of down that path in the workflow. And then what you really need to think about is how many viewers do you have, and what is the experience they need. So if you're really trying to do one-to-many broadcasting, it's probably going to be better to choose, and the many is thousands to maybe it's tens of thousands. I would suggest using a HTTP-based protocol for that, tuning it for some lower latency, but with a audience that large, it's really impossible to have 10,000 people chatting and interacting at the same time. So let's focus on getting them all to have a really good quality experience and be able to maintain that kind of near real time with an HTTP-based protocol. If you're dealing with smaller audiences that can facilitate that real time engagement, or maybe it's use cases that are urgency, like security or emergency communications, then definitely maintaining WebRTC on the outbound would be a really good recommendation for your workflow.
Right. Thanks, Anthony. I got a question that people have been responding to the person who originally asked it, so I'll just say it here, although I feel like I know the answer. Why is this webinar in Zoom and not through Wowza?
Make Dave answer that one.
I'm gonna have Barry answer that.
As the webinar producer and from the marketing department, I'll say in general, it's management. I mean, on a simple level for the marketing department, being able to track information, being able to do all of the back-end functionality that we need for both marketing and sales, we needed a tool that had more than just live video streaming. So certainly on the live video streaming aspect, we could handle it on our own.
Yeah. And I'll answer it. I'll add to that. Wowza builds the capabilities to be a webinar platform. We give you the solution suites and tools to do it. We aren't a webinar platform.
And yeah, just building on that, Wowza is core infrastructure for tens of thousands of products and services. Our intent is not to compete with them directly, but to enable a wide variety of businesses, video platforms, auctions, medical, et cetera, to get their jobs done. If you want to build a great video platform, be a video. If you want to be a great video webinar company, be a video webinar company, right? We're handling the video component. And as everyone that works with video knows, it's not really done. right? You can adhere to all the standards and still have a tremendous number of problems. And that's why we've invested 15 years into building this to enable tens of thousands of organizations worldwide to deliver video reliably.
And some of those customers of ours do build platforms and video conferencing systems and many other things. So
yeah, I definitely know a few of our people that use our service for webinars, and I don't think they'd like it if we suddenly became their competition. So I totally hear you there. I'm going to just jump to a few of these questions at the very end here because they seem to be things I'm sure some of you would like to answer. Like, can Wowza integrate AI Clearcaster on the platform, please? So I think they're asking for more
I think that
integration.
was closed caption.
Oh, okay. AI closed captions.
So
That's the way I
Gotcha.
So is that, I'm assuming that is a speech to text kind of service. So as it's spoken, we convert that to text so that it can be then presented as a closed caption is the question. We do have some examples of using Streaming Engine to do that right now. And we're going to be looking at how we can provide some of that to customers. I don't know about whether it will be going into the cloud service. So somebody else can answer that question.
Yeah, it's unlikely to start. I think they were asking actually in the hardware appliance, and so that wouldn't be where it would start doing that type of sending out video to a transcription service, sending back the transcriptions, mashing it together. Something you could do custom in Engine today. It's something that we might make a little easier in the future, but it would start in Engine or cloud.
And I will also say that we're constantly working to innovate in those areas. We've definitely done some experimentations with the AI-based captioning services, and we'll continue to go down that road. And our platforms are API-based and API-driven. You could potentially do some of this stuff either with the help of my team of professional services or on your own to do some research and experiment, and maybe innovate in some of these areas yourself.
All right. A couple more questions. I know we're almost at the end of the hour there, so I'm going to just try to get to 3 or 4 more questions and then hand it over to you, Tim.
Sounds good.
Harish was asking, is there a tried and tested workflow with Wowza and Microsoft Teams live events?
I'm kind of wondering if Microsoft Teams has an RTMP publishing capability. I don't know if anyone on the panel would know that, but often.
I know who to ask, but no, I don't know.
No, today there is not a tried and true connection between the two. That's just a fair thing to say. We certainly know Microsoft and know the Teams team pretty well, but we don't have that reliable happy path workflow at this point.
Okay. They're kind of extending the question. I think Ganesh is asking, in addition to Teams, what about Google Hangouts or even better, Big Blue Button? I've actually never heard of Big Blue Button.
Yeah, that one's unfamiliar. A lot, things like Teams and all that are more closed systems. We can extend Zoom as an example, so there is an integration there, but not Google Hangouts works a certain way. We do not integrate with that at this time, and I'm going to look up Big Blue Button because I'm highly.
The key there is being able to get the stream out of whatever meeting software you're using and be able to push that into cloud or into Engine for distribution. I imagine some of these have it. We happen to know that Zoom does, and we've tested with it. It's quite possible some of the others do as well.
Okay, I'm going to just get it to 1 or 2 more questions now. There are definitely a lot of questions in, guys, and I will do the best I can to bring some of these over to support to be answered later. But Clay says, like, Tim, your camera looks great. He wants to know what camera and encoder you're using.
It's all about the lighting.
I'm using my MacBook Pro, and I've got a couple of dim LED lights looking at me. I feel like I'm sitting at one of those makeup stands where they simulate different lighting for different makeup thing. Maybe you do or do not know what I'm talking about, but no, thank you. I'll take it as a compliment. But I'm just having fun with green screen.
And it's a really good point, right? So even Tim sitting in front of his computer at home with a fairly inexpensive setup, he's got a good microphone, he's got a quiet location, and he's got some good lighting, it makes a difference. So you don't have to spend a lot of money to have a very professional looking production. You just need to know some of the secrets, and we're happy to share.
Yeah, Tim, it looks like you're in an office and not sheltering in place.
Well, I am sheltering in place. I am in California, and we're all doing our part to isolate and hopefully eliminate this this virus that is really up against us right now. So,
all right, I'll jump to the last two questions, or near the end here. One that a lot of people are asking about is Wowza looking at NDI for any workflows?
Looking at it, it's definitely an interesting technology as it relates to, in building, moving streams around, video around, getting that signal acquisition to then, potentially broadcast it out. So it's most relevant to either the Clearcaster hardware, appliance Wowza has, or, Wowza's streaming engine being run to help route those video sources around. But it's not, be honest, it's not in the first half of the year roadmap for us, so don't expect it in the next couple of months, but it's certainly an interesting tech that we're paying attention to.
All right, and I think I'm just trying to, some of the questions disappear because Mac and Abby are doing a great job answering them as they come in. So I'll just go to just one question here. What are plans on VOD? So another roadmap question.
So Wowza supports VOD from Wowza's streaming engine standpoint. In Wowza's streaming cloud, we'll have a lot of work for a live to VOD solution for you to be able to have on-demand playback of your live events. So that's something that you can be expecting from us soon, which should be a really great way to complete your kind of broadcasting needs. So you can have that on-demand asset available, piping through the CDN still for easy delivery, etc.
Yeah, and let's get more precise. Delivering a file, whether it's a single file and we can dynamically adapt it, right, while as we're streaming it. So there are lots of long tail use cases where you don't want all the adaptive bit rates set up in advance. We can deliver that kind of real-time adaptive. And the bit that, and we can also do live linear, right? Have a whole set of files that can be displayed like live, like a traditional TV show. But the other people that people often think about when they're saying video on demand is the content management system and all that sort of stuff, the structuring of that, those digital assets. And that is, to Anthony's point, that is absolutely something that we are looking into. We have been providing that to certain use cases for some of our more direct enterprise customers. So if you have a specific need that requires video on demand for a reasonably sizable application, we're happy to talk to you.
Yeah, please. I mean, that's one of the things my group tackles, is these special requests for something that may not be available in the product now, but we can certainly help you with. And we've done it in the past with good success.
All right, thank you. Well, I say we have a lot of questions here. I think we still have 33 more, but we're definitely out of time, past time. So I'm just going to turn this over to you, Tim. Tim, and everyone else, thank you for answering these questions.
thank you, Justin. Folks, I hope you have gotten the message that we want to help you with your video streaming workflow, small or large. Please do not hesitate to reach out. We have a small army of dedicated professionals who want to listen and want to offer you good, tangible advice. If you're interested in any general question about pricing, anything having to do with Wowza, any of our products, drop an email to sales@wowza.com. You can see our toll-free number is there on the screen. Our website is, of course, a great first place to stop and look around at pricing and support options at wowza.com. We're committed, just like so many others, at doing what we can to isolate COVID-19. So if you have anything you need from a video perspective, please reach out. We're here to help. I want to thank our panelists today, Dave, Andrew, Barry and Anthony, and of course, Justin. Thanks for taking care of us on all the mechanics of the meeting. And of course, to all of you who have watched, particularly our friends down in Australia. It was so wonderful to have all of you on today. And we look forward to continued engagement as you consider Wowza and other streaming opportunities. So again, thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.